Wow, feedback. There we go. All right. I don't think we have any issues here. Public comment. When public comment, either written or given by, want to be given by our public regarding.
I don't have that. I don't have that on my.
Number 5.
Supervisors.
No, that's number 6.
All right.
I have the amended agenda.
I don't have the right.
Well, you don't. You gave me the wrong one.
Just count.
This is funny. You have the right one, don't you, Jay? I got the right one. It's irrelevant anyway. It's green, upstairs. Right. We won't be having any public comment because of the nature of the meeting. There will be an option for public comment. However, members of the public would like to make a written comment prior to the meeting, they email their comments to the clerk. I don't know if she got any or not. I'll ask her when she gets back. You may also mail comments to the topics, however, they may not be received and provided to the supervisors by the date of the meeting. Chair? So why are we not allowing public comment? There is someone up there. Why weren't we allowed? My question is, why are we allowing public comment at this time? That's why the chair for that. I would like to ask Corporation Counsel, but she's not here. Vince?
Yes.
I got it. Oh, that's the Jim Dove one. I got the wrong one.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Because they're both amended, that's why.
The COVID-19 crisis came on board. We had to do some quick things, and we said, we kind of reduced the public comments to stop people from coming in here. We're now at that point where I think technology continues to get better. We can allow public comment upstairs. We can't let a bunch of people in this room on these things. But it's up to the individual committee chairman. And also, letting Lisa and or myself know that if you want to have public comment, we can do that now. So I think going forward, I might recommend that we're going to change the template of our agendas to say if you could send it in writing, or if you would prefer to call in, or if you prefer to come here and see it live from this building, though not in the same room, you'll be able to make public comment up there. So that's what we're going to recommend. So if the committee chairman all approve of that, one of you or all of you will do that.
So my question is we have 4 people in the room right now, 5, 6 besides the committee, and there's someone upstairs. Why can't we make it safe for someone to be right here and we have our distancing? Why can't we let the public come in and make public comment directly to us?
You mean have them line up at 6 feet apart and then have them walk in?
Sure.
I think that's a possibility.
We could have someone right now in this room that want to make public comment if we wanted. We have the newspaper here.
If that's what you want to do, I would just ask that we keep in mind the guidelines or the home we keep spacing. So if we want to mark the floor and have people stand out there to come in, they can do that. Their other alternative might be they can go up there and do it on television.
It's their choice.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I think we have to work through the logistics of that because we don't want to foster anything that's gonna hurt people. Right? Make them sick.
Yeah.
Just another point on that. If they're waiting in line, they won't hear what everybody else says. Right. So if they're up there, they at least get to hear the whole meeting. I hate to see people lined up outside and not know what the first person said. So I look at it that way a little bit, if there's a lot. But if there's only a few, I think we should have them come up, like you said, in person.
This gentleman, I heard, I don't know who that is, does he want to make public comment?
Wouldn't be an issue now. On the other hand, what if you had 12? We didn't have enough room in here. How do you decide which 2 or 3 come down here?
Can't they do it from up there?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's one or the other, you know, unless there's just 1 or 2 people here.
So what's the consensus here? Should we want to do it from upstairs or?
Sure.
Each one will decide at their meeting for how many people are here, I would think. You know, that's how you make that decision.
Yeah.
If there's a lot or not.
Just run a number of people, we'll just do it that way, Jay.
I think we should do one or the other.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because of the fact that if you do them down here as they're selected, you got a time limit on getting down here for one thing, which would be burdensome. But I would suggest that we probably do them all up there with a microphone and you know, if you come out as selected, we'll see it just as well as we walk from here. And, you know, just bringing some down and some staying.
Oh, you know what, I agree with you. Yep.
Is there a microphone up there for you? Put a microphone up there and we can down here, that would be nice.
If I can interject from that, we have that public comment up there before for environmental services. It worked well. I can unmute him upstairs right now. We can ask him if he wants to make public comment if it's set up that way.
That would sure be the easiest.
It's not on this agenda. He might be on general government, but it's not on our agenda today for public comment.
It is not. Since I guess it isn't on our agenda, I guess we make that decision for general government. I guess we're going to do with that. You know, like I guess we said, each committee can decide the same. I would agree with making a public comment from up there would be fine. All right, moving on then. Receipt of information from supervisors not seated committee members. Joe, you have anything? No? Mr. Warndall, anything? Okay. Review appointments by chair and administrator. Chris, you have anything?
Yes, Brian Johnson has been for 2 years an alternate on our Board of Adjustments, but he is an alternate and he wished to remain that, so I would like to appoint him to continue. I've asked him if he'd do that as the alternate. That's the only appointment that's due now. In the month of July, on the Board of Adjustments, Tim Lau, who's the chairman of that committee, his term is up. So we posted for Brian's position, and now we just posted for Mr. Lau's position in the newspaper to see if anyone is interested in those positions. Mr. Lau's indicated he's still interested, so I bring it to your attention if you all want to make any recommendations. I mean, you may want to think about that. You know, we may get names coming in.
Chris?
Yeah, so I think the one thing I've just wanted to bring up by executive is, you know, I've kind of asked the chair and our vice chair of the board that because of Jim's passing, that this team would fill in for Jim's spots until we get a new appointment for Jim. So I agreed to sit on environmental services until Jim is spots done. I've asked Brian to do Polk County housing. I would like to get someone to sit in the health and human services for a week or a month. Maybe it'll take a month, I don't know. I don't know what else Jim had to do, but I can give you that update. And then I have had a couple supervisors and a few people in the public have talked to me about filling Jim's position, and what I've asked them to do If anyone knows anybody, please have them send me a letter.
In his district?
In his district, so St. Croix Falls Township, and this in the city of Village of Centuria, Jim's district. And had a few people call, and then then once I get that list, I've already talked to the township about it. I'll be reaching out to Village of Centuria and vetting that, and I guess I'm not in a rush to do it tomorrow. I think if we pick up the slack for Jim, we'll just, I'll work on that this month, and that's the only other appointment I think was on my plate to deal with.
I move for confirmation for, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson.
Just want them together, it's fine.
2 weeks.
That goes to the full board, doesn't it?
That's us, we can make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, and I think the thing is our positions on these boards right now are just temporary. The way I understand it will happen is the new person that gets put in Jim's spot will automatically sit in all of Jim's committees, and it'll be up to that person if they want to resign. If that person doesn't want that workload coming in the door, that person would then need to resign off the committees that person would not want to be on, and then we would bring nominations to the county board, and we would have an election to put a supervisor in those spots, and that's the process I think we're going to follow. That was based on Corporation Counsel's advice.
Sounds about right. All right, so there was a motion to approve myself and Brian Johnson as me on the Housing Authority and him as the alternate for BOA.
And I'm sitting on Environmental Services.
Oh, I'm sorry.
These are just temporary positions right now.
That's fine.
I don't know who would want to sit on Health and Human Services. We should have someone sit on that. Can you do that, Jay? All right, so Jay would do Health and Human Services. So I think that would cover Jim's responsibilities. So why don't we do it as that? I think they have snacks.
Well, this is something that has come up in the 7 or so months that I've been here, where the question is where do, and it's not just UW Extension, but several different things we looked at, and I've had people say, boy, environmental services is overloaded, it seems like, in the sense that they've got long meetings twice a month, and they're working on very important projects, the things that take a lot of intense time, public comment, and so on. So we started thinking about, and I mentioned it to Mr. Masters, that are there some responsibilities that might be more appropriate on another committee? And the two that I came up with initially is just something for you guys to think about to see if it makes sense, was UW Extension, and then possibly switching it to general government, and then also the tax deed properties also switched over to general government. And the reason I mentioned, the reason I mentioned UW Extension is because there's really what UW Extension does is very little has to do with agriculture. Yes, it's an important part of them, and that's why Lyle Doolittle is on the committee. So when we have an ag agent, that section of Extension will still remain up through the environmental services. But they do so many other things. For example, of late, They are working with the CJCC, coordinating it. They also helped the Community Services Division organize and create an effective structure. He's also, Don Wortham is helping with the goal set. Don Wortham and Carrie are both helping with the goal setting exercise that all of you will be undertaking or have started already over the next month. They really focus, I think, as much or more on things like community development, health and well-being, human development, natural resources, and youth programs. So my thought was, and it's not a big thing, but would it make more sense to report up through general government as the organization that will deal with the financing part of it? The ag person, which we don't have right now and won't have for 6 months to a year, when they come back, or if that reorganizes and they do have an ag agent here, it will go up through environmental services like it always has. So that might be one thing, just to take a small thing off that committee's plate. The tax deed properties, it's not like we do a lot with those as much as I understand it anymore, but when we do, seems like that might be more appropriate for general government.
Speaking in terms of tax deeds, yeah, I can see that being part of finance that would fall under general government. I don't know if it takes up a lot of time with you, Kim. I guess I'd like your opinion.
It doesn't take up a lot of time, but I think property, the buy and sell of it, has to go through a planning committee. That's why it's in. We're also the planning committee. So I think we'd have to have Malia look. I think any buy, sell of land, to keep it, not keep it, starts in the planning committee. So that's why it was in there, I think. And it doesn't take a lot. But I think it has to go through there to decide when it comes in, are we going to keep it or are we going to sell it? So it would go to general government, it would have to come back to us again, and then go. So I think that one should probably stay. Because otherwise 2 committees are going to look at it and it still has to go through us.
Okay. I can, that's fine with me.
That's what we should look up, because I think it has to go through that planning process.
Chad, have we heard from Malia?
I think it's like 279 something.
Okay.
So that your planning committee, we review all the land that the county owns, decide if we want to keep it or not, then it goes to general government for the financial part.
Okay.
So it does have to come through a planning committee. So,
like forestry and everything, we have annual forest sales. Does that all go through your committee?
that all goes through ours and we have to look at each one.
Thank you. Well, on the forestry, I mean, that goes to townships too.
Yes, they pay the townships, but it comes to us for all the logging bids and everything we approve or disapprove, so they can go out and do it.
All right. Any other further comments, thoughts?
Just something to think about. I don't know that we need action today, but I wanted it to spark a conversation, and especially with you, Mr. O'Connell. If we, as we evolve, we've gone into these divisions, are there things that we can help you focus on truly environmental services thing, and then maximize the abilities of our other committees, which have capacity, I guess, to do it.
Yep.
So I guess in conclusion, we should keep this on the agenda and talk about it. She shows that out for comes today, whatever. All right.
Okay.
Very good. All right. Any further discussion? If none, we'll move on to number 9. Update regarding investigation and options for saving Clam Falls Dam. For you, Vince?
Yes. I've had a number of conversations, and I'll boil this down. Give or take, we need about 600,000, or someone needs to take ownership of the dam, pay about $600,000, give or take 100,000, right? And then that's not the main issue. Then the main issue is every year we'll take I would recommend $35,000 a year for liability insurance, maintenance, regular maintenance, and then creating kind of an escrow fund for the future of major repairs and those types of things. A couple of options we have that seem the most realistic. Our state representatives, Ms. Magnifici and Ms. Shackner, have indicated they would support fighting to save that dam through a budget amendment next year. What that would look like is they could possibly get inserted into the budget earmarked funds to repair the Clam Falls Dam. So best case scenario, let's say they can get $600,000 that would pay to have that repaired. You still have the issue of ownership. Northwest Electric doesn't want it. So the natural ownership might be Clam Falls, right? The town of Clam Falls. They could apply for the grant, which would be another $400,000 that we've already counted into repair. Northwest Electric doesn't necessarily want the owner, or they don't want it. They've applied for the permit to draw down the lake. I've asked them if they would be willing, Northwest Electric, I've asked them if they'd be willing to withdraw their request to draw down the lake and tear out the dam for one more year, giving our state legislators a chance to fight for that $600,000 earmark. I have not received word. That has to go before their board of directors. My personal opinion, they may not be real enthused to do it, but they're going to ask, and I think they want to help the town of Clam Falls if they can. So they would pay another year's of liability insurance, maintenance, and so on. So it is an expense on their part. The other option, we had one real estate development company contact them and say, they're headquartered in New York City, Miami, and Utah. Individual called and said, we'll take ownership of that dam, repair it. All we need is about $35,000 a year in perpetuity. I looked up the company, and Malia and I, and we did look up a lot of information, tried to on them. We didn't get a lot of information on them. It's kind of one of those where, who are these guys and why would they do it? Well, $35,000 a year is 5.8% of $600,000. So if they invested $600,000, they're going to be getting a return of 5.8%. Now, that will be going to maintenance and insurance, we think. But there's nothing to stop a company like that from saying, you know, we were wrong about that $35,000. Now it's $45,000. And they can start blackmailing, and I wouldn't say blackmailing, they could start upping the price. And so
Well, now you got the price.
okay, off the rack. Well, I just feel like
You can put the screws to them.
it just didn't feel, and I've tried to reach out to this company to get questions answered, and they won't return my call. So I don't think that's a real alternative.
Well, that's because we're really not the owners of the dam either. That's probably why they're ignoring the calls too.
Yeah. There have been 2 dams break that you've heard about in the media over the past 6 weeks, Michigan and Ohio, I think, to illustrate what's going on. I talked to the Army Corps of Engineers. Army Corps of Engineers, his comment was, I don't know if I could do something to do it any cheaper. The $600,000 repair. It's actually a 1.5 million, but we need an extra 600,000 to do it. And he just said, beware that the money you put into it, liability insurance, escrow, and maintenance, his comment was, is never enough. He said there will be extra maintenance that come up. There might be a spill. There might, he went down, he was very cautious about this. So the bottom line is, nobody has stepped up and said, no good prospects have stepped up and said, we got your 600,000. And nobody has said they have money to pay 30,000 a year. Town Board of Clam Falls had a meeting last night. The question was raised, how much are we willing to contribute to keeping the dam on a yearly basis if somebody bought it? And they could not come up with a number. They just said we discussed it, but then no action was taken. So,
Well, they already had a letter to us saying that they put money into it.
right. The Lake Association, has had a fundraiser. They collected, I think, about $9,000. So my question was, could you do that every year? And they said, probably not. So so we're kind of still back at that position of, if we could find a way to get it fixed through the state legislators. The question is ownership and who wants to pay $35,000 a year. And nobody stepped up.
John?
I also met personally with, Patty Schockner and Dave Magnuson, and they said, had this come up 2 years ago, it's trying to find any budget, and it wouldn't have been any problem, but now it's on a new year. And they also said, yeah, they moved in their feet.
Did she have a sense that it would be, was she positive about the prospects of getting this earmarked funds into the budget?
They just said that they could use it.
Yeah.
She said, based on she said 2 years ago, it would have been no problem.
Yeah.
Next year.
I
So
have,
it's in limbo.
yeah. And obviously, and I'm not a lawyer, but, is there some way to file a lawsuit? There is probably some way, whoever is affected by it. But I have not gotten a sense that they've had success in the past suing to say, hey, you're hurting my property values by removing this dam. That hasn't historically been successful.
Chris?
Yeah, I know we don't have the resolution right in front of us and what we asked to do, but I guess at this point, if you feel like it's kind of getting to a point where it's a little bit of a dead end with people participating to try to delay it for a year, I believe a resolution does give us some options there. And I would encourage us to follow the resolution. And the resolution does say that that we possibly, and I guess Maria could answer this question better, that I would ask that we would file a stay or whatever the issue is, that we, not that we want to file a lawsuit, so to speak, but that we would ask that the DNR table the application for the drawdown for 1 year to give everyone a little bit more time to get this resolved. And I'm still talking, Chair, if you don't mind me finishing.
Yep.
So it may be, I'm guessing Corporation Counsel can read the resolution and could maybe give us a little information on what that all means.
So I think the original resolution really wanted us to explore all options, including any potential litigation. So any type of lawsuit, even a lawsuit just to stay something, is still litigation. And so we can certainly explore that. I don't want to, in open session, talk about what strategies we might employ. Maybe a closed session at some point on the next executive would be appropriate. Do we know the time frame for the DNR responding to the application to draw down?
Yes. And I will say this, when I called the DNR, it's not up to them to delay it or to withdraw or whatever. Once the permit or the request comes to them, they have to act within so many days, but they are delayed a little bit because of COVID. So they won't be making a decision till probably later this summer. They did tell me that in essence, they wouldn't have an issue if Northwest Electric wanted to withdraw that request for a year. And that's what I posed to, I think it's Mr. Dahlberg at Northwest Electric, and he said, he goes, I'll have to take that to the board and ask if we're willing to withdraw that request. So that's what I've asked them to do, to see if they're willing to do that. And if that's the case, then we could go back to our legislators and ask them to earmark.
Yeah, so I would just continue that comment then, is I would request that we put on our agenda a closed session, and that at next month we could review what our options are to encourage everyone, even if it's just some simple legal documentation or the process to at least, you know.
Well,
So I'm just, hold on, Chair. I'm still just, Chair, I'm still talking. Can I finish? I'm not talking to you, I was talking to the Corporation Council. So I guess I would just like to follow the resolution. We've obviously reached out. The next thing would be to have an enclosed session, then to, you know, whether the closed session is at this meeting or it's at a county board meeting, so we're all aware of it, but I definitely think we should follow our resolution.
I do think that the information that Supervisor Bonaprise mentioned regarding the communications with the elected officials might be very interesting, to make sure that the electric company is aware of that, because they would have a financial vested interest in delaying the drawdown, because they have to pay for it. It costs money to do that. And if they saw true possibility of a 1-year delay actually allowing them to sell it and walk away without having to expend those monies, it would be a win for them as well. So I think we should follow up on that avenue too.
Done.
And I got an idea here. Northwestern officials really don't care about the property owner. So when you mentioned that he's gonna bring that up to the board, you could be at a meeting, or, you know, you could have some input, like, the legislature would be involved, they would represent the county, the people. That would be possible, that you would request that you would have information to them at the point.
Well, all right, I'm gonna make my comment now. As being the non-owners of the dam, which we are not the owners of the dam, Northwestern has that option to pull their request for the drawdown, yes. But that's up to them. It's not up to us. I mean, I still believe that there may be some options, but how is it up to us to determine whether we should have a lawsuit against them for not drawing it? I'm not done, just a minute. Hold on. This is going in big circles, what's going. We don't own the dam. Northwestern owns the dam. Somebody else is interested in it now. And how do we can't tell them to pull the request to draw down. That's up to them, isn't it? It's not up to us. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just raising my hand, so when you were done, I would talk. So again, Supervisor Masters, just because a supervisor votes against it and has been adamantly tried to oppose to anything we've done on this, as the supervisors, we pass a resolution and we have to stand behind our board whether we vote positive or negative.
I'm not arguing that point.
So my point would be is that we have a resolution that got passed by the county board, and I am asking that the resolution be followed.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll keep that on our agenda to have a possible session to discuss this further next month. Or? Okay.
Right.
Jay?
My bypass on next month, I mean, move on.
I would just say though, I have not gotten any response from Northwest Electric yet. I've called and I haven't had a return call. So, I can follow up with them again to see if he's even discussed it with the board. I don't know if their board meets monthly, quarterly, or what. But, I certainly at some point, we're going to present this to the board to say, here's what we've looked at. So.
Presented to the board of an empty lake or?
Yeah, Chair, I agree with Jay that maybe in Maria and Vince, maybe the right thing would be to do is, what is it? This committee is going to talk about it, and then we're going to talk about it again at the county board. It's a big issue. Why don't we just put it on a closed session discussion, what all our options are legally, and we just do it at the county board and put it on their agenda. And I would bypass this committee on this action also. Whenever you can put it on our agenda.
I live miles from the county line and I don't know anybody in that area or anything, but I feel a huge responsibility as, they are part of our tax base for the county. And I just feel a huge responsibility, doing everything we can to protect that tax base. And so that's why I took it upon myself to meet with our representatives. And I was pretty impressed with their end of the representation.
I don't think we're taking comments from Supervisor Seed right now. Go ahead.
I think we're going to
We're not allowed to take.
I think this is discussed about a whole session, at least for the same month, by going to us here again. Directly to the county board. At least we'll know what our options are for the general feeling of the entire county board. And we can move faster. We everybody is right with what's going on. And we'll have a real good get some information from Northwest company, expeditiously, that would be great.
Right, I will.
All right, I believe that's fine. Chairman Nelson, that's your prerogative to put that on the agenda for county board. All right. Anything else other than that? Moving on. Update and discussion regarding COVID-19 recommendations from state or county at the local effects and recommendations. Thanks. Chad or Chris?
Yeah, I asked that to be put on the agenda. So I'm getting calls from constituents, village, municipalities, and I see it in the paper where it says, we decided to cancel this event because of public health department guidelines. We heard from the public health, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology or not, but, and, obviously there's a mixed bag of, everyone's got an opinion about where we're at right now. And I just feel like we're not getting clear directive, especially the municipalities is what I'm hearing, is someone shows up and says, well, I talked to someone in the hallway and they said, hey, maybe we shouldn't, here's the guidelines, or what are the guidelines really mean? And then it said, well, if it was up to me, I probably wouldn't do it. And so then this information goes back and it's like, well, there's some liability there. Well, isn't there? So Village of Balsam Lake canceled Freedom Fest and then canceled the fireworks. Well, A lot of people that pay for the fireworks on Balsam Lake watch the fireworks on their boats. But then there's a park on the lake where a lot of the residents go down to the park to watch the fireworks. So they sit along the street and watch the fireworks show. And my question is to help these municipalities out to make good decisions, because no one's experts in this. I guess I'm asking for some better way that we can communicate and get that information to say, if you want to have a fireworks show, here are our guidelines. Because I know the Village of Balsam Lake and the bar owners are very concerned because the vote went 3-3 to cancel it. The bar owners are going to say, it's going to overwhelm us because we're going to have all these people in our bars and in our patios and our backyards, and normally people could kind of move out a little bit and have safe distancing. They're saying there's no possibility of us controlling the crowds over the 4th of July in the establishments. So some of them are saying these decisions that are being made, that are being discussed in the community, are actually going to have a negative. I mean, there's going to be more people exposed, less social distancing because of not allowing an event to be outdoors. It was just more that I'm not looking for any action. I just wanted to at least tell the committee, the executive committee, what I'm hearing from our municipalities and our community members. So I just wanted to make the comment. That's all.
Yeah, I asked the chair of the.
Excuse me. I asked Tanya Eichert and Brian Kazmersky, we have to know who's in charge because there's been exactly a lot of miscommunications. So this is what Brian Kazmersky told me. He is the health officer. Brian Hobbs, he does the permitting for different things, but Brian said he is the health officer. And the fairgrounds, you had a question about events at the fairgrounds. He said the fairgrounds, the public that the county owns, he said everything, he doesn't have any questions, or everything is open to the public. The fair canceled the fair as a fair board, but if there's any, the fair has all weekends rented except they did last year, except for, I guess, 2 weekends. And he said, that's up to them if they want to require somebody to bring in their own toilets or whatever. They could restrict, things for use. But he said the fairgrounds, all the public, he said, as far as he's concerned, it's open.
So John, so the question got brought up to the fair. Could there be, there's equestrian people that wanted to schedule equestrian events at the fair, fun shows they call them, or, whatever, because the fair is not open. So anyways, they were told that based on health department guidelines of Polk County, that they couldn't allow people on the property, and they were worried about the liability, and they didn't want to have them using the public bathrooms, and that the fair said, we are not allowing any of the events to happen on the fairgrounds based on guidelines. And everyone points in the air where the guidelines come from. Everyone's pointing different directions. So it's very confusing to the public and municipalities. Yeah. I think that's the crutch of the.
Mr. Chair. Yes, man. Yes, it is confusing and has been from day one. And you, being on our policy committee, has seen how things come down from the state, they come from the feds, they come from everywhere, and they change daily. Now, what I can say, our policy has been, especially now after the safer at home order has been lifted because of the Supreme Court ruling, our emphasis has been on education. And so our public health director does have the knowledge of the risks and the best practices. And so his role has been really to communicate to whoever asks what the risks might be and what are some best practices. He does not tell anyone you can do something or you cannot do something. That's not his role. What he can do is say things like, and I think what he has communicated effectively is if the more people get together, and especially if you're bringing them from outside areas you don't know where they come from, there may be an increased risk of spreading the virus. However, it's your decision if you want to do that or not. And if you do, here are some suggestions on how to keep people as safe as possible. Now, what that gets translated to in the newspapers or in meetings is upon advice of public health. And I don't think there was advice or a directive, but rather here are the facts. And then they make their own decision.
Mr. Chair, I would think that's what we heard from Brian on Tuesday at our meeting.
It's just amazing to see all these thousands and thousands of people gathering in spots and protesting and so on and so forth, and everybody's worried about it. I may get sick.
Right.
I concur with that.
I don't know, they're not worried, it seems like too much down there. Anyway, all right.
You got everything? I'd like to,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just one comment that we're trying to resolve something that nobody's been able to resolve all the way from the very, very top down. I mean, they're opening up. I think our best advice comes from the medical world, and look at the numbers. And other than that, you're not going to get one iota of practical information or usable information from anyone, because you're looking at two different reasons that you should not congregate. One is a medical reason, and one is a political reason. And we're not going to resolve that problem in our minds, but I think we should take our best practices, take the information and just get it out. And I think that we'll never be able to just watch the numbers. That's all we can do.
Anything else?
I will say too, the numbers have gone up, but that there is a direct correlation with the number of tests that we're doing now. We are doing an extremely high number of testing. In fact, we tested Golden Age Manor, 2 other nursing home facilities, one in Luck, one in, where's the other one? Where was it?
St. Rose.
Yeah, but, and so we tested over 200 people in those institutions, and none of them came back. So, but we are doing a lot more testing now. And so, the percentages are still low. They're going up a little bit, but as of yesterday, we had no people with the virus in the hospital. So they might be getting symptoms, they may not be getting symptoms, but that's encouraging.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that's a good, that's something we may, watch very closely ourselves. And one of the factors in remaining here is you mentioned it, is the hospitalization. You can test all you want, you're going to find more, but that isn't going to interfere with the hospitalization numbers. That's impartial to anything. It's other than the fact somebody's got it and they're sick. So we watch that more than anything else.
Or the cause of death being unrelated half the time, being caused as COVID. Interesting. Anyway.
We've been arguing with that over time. Now you're getting into
No, not good. All right. Anyway, any other discussion on the matter? We'll move on to number 11. Discussion and possible action regarding supervisors' attendance at conferences and outside meetings. Policies, review of policy for outside meetings attendance. I didn't put that on there.
I did. So I've, since I'm new in this job, I don't really know what our policy specifically is and what our past has been. We had one supervisor send an email to me asking for approval to attend a meeting. And so it's my first request like that. And had a list of the things that they wanted to get paid for. And it was, travel, meals, mileage. It was the hotel. It was, it had a list of things. And I just said, I'd just like to have a discussion with the executive and review our policy and what our past practices have been, and how do I do that?
Do you have a travel policy? I don't have it.
As far as what's reimbursed here, we have a policy regarding breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have a policy for in-state, out-of-state meals. We have a policy for hotel rooms. We have a policy for mileage reimbursement. And of course, there's the per diem policy. So as long as they follow that and don't exceed that, they can be reimbursed up to that much.
We have a policy too for county vehicles.
We also have county pool vehicles that we can use. We have all those things. It's $8 for breakfast, $10 for lunch, $12 for dinner if it's in state. It's 35 cents a mile. They take their own vehicle. They do not take a county vehicle. It's $82 a night for a hotel.
So when those requests come in like that, and they haven't gone and attended these meetings, obviously there's supervisors that have done this for years, and they have a traditional going to these meetings. They understand that. So when we get a request that seems a little bit different, or some request for compensation, what is the policy then? What do we do to direct a supervisor to follow up with? I can approve them going to the meeting, I guess, is what the question was, right? Yes, you can go to the meeting. Policy on what reimbursements are, who do they talk to?
I guess just refer back to me.
To you, okay.
I will say one tweak on that is, one of the things that was requested were meals. And Tammy, who's the person in charge of submitting all those expenses, said we don't reimburse meals because we give them a per diem. So
I think there's some confusion there. So we don't have a true per diem where here you have this amount of money, use it if you want. It's an honor system where we used to ask for receipts and then reimburse for the meal. But now it's, you tell us, it's truly cumbersome, to be honest with you. You have to write down where you are, what you ate, how much it was, but you just don't have to provide a receipt. So it really is a reimbursement, the system we have now.
We still use the guideline for the travel reimbursement. We just don't require supervisors to turn in all the
In the rules of order for the county board, it indicates that board members shall receive per diems plus travel mileage and meals as adopted through resolution by a simple majority of the county board. But then later on, it indicates that those reimbursements will be handled consistent with Polk County reimbursement policy. So I think what the chair is asking as far as where the discretion is, we know once you are traveling, you're going to follow county reimbursement policy. How do you decide who to approve to go to what meetings? And that's where internally, I think as a committee and then a board, you need to decide whether that's going to rest solely with the chair to simply say yes or no, if it's going to be on an honor system where supervisors can attend, as long as they're not, overdoing it. That's where I think you have the discretion.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree with Joyce. I think our county is really generous in per diem, and I think the policy has always been that the county chair does deny or approve of any representation. And I myself, in 18 years, my God, I never put in a meal because of that email. And I think Premier covers that. There shouldn't be any question with that.
Sometimes I don't know. I'm not trying to find it. We have both there. How can we avoid being both, or one or the other. It should be one or the other.
Well, that's, excuse me, but that's why we should be updating our policies. Tim Anderson's trying to get these codified and everything else. This is part of the problem. It's been sitting here for 10 years and nothing done. So, I mean, every committee, whatever policy is under them, should be on their work plan and update these so that they're usable. I mean, there's a resolution from like 2012 to do it. Here we sit. So, that should be something on every committee's work plan. Whatever's under them, they should be updating these so we know where they're at.
So Chair, what committee then is what I'd like to see is what committee, is that the proper committee for this issue? We're still in a meeting, Mike.
I can see it twofold. I think the executive committee, because you're talking about how a rule is going to apply to county board supervisors themselves. However, there's the financial side, which would implicate general government. So perhaps this is one of those where the full county board should just debate and decide what direction, similar to the organizational meeting when you decided on general rules of order.
Committee of a whole type
Yeah.
meeting? Okay.
Did you have a follow-up?
Nope, just, that's fine.
John?
I would request that it be on the agenda for our executive next meeting.
I think,
And
I believe, John, that we've already, including that.
Corporation Council is suggesting we just do it at the county board. So yeah, we'll put that on the agenda then, and then, you know, we'll figure out what's the right process, O'Connell, as far as every committee. Yep. So I'll put that on the agenda.
Number 12. Discussion regarding review of resolutions from 2019 earlier for possible update for information purposes.
That's again, just, I'm just trying to get this stuff better through you guys to say, what do you guys think? Because I know we have resolutions, like O'Connell just talked about a resolution and 10 years ago and we still haven't done it. And so one of the things that, you know, as a county board, we pass resolutions every year, and then you just assume that they're being followed, and and sometimes I think they might just land on the shelf. And I just didn't know exactly what is the right process to follow up on resolutions from the previous year and just have updates, and what committees or all committees should do them, whatever committee passes these resolutions. I just feel like that should be responsibility of the county board, that we just get an update on resolutions that, yes, this resolution's been in place and it's being followed. And that was why I asked for our committee to discuss, and with the administrator and Chad, is there a process, or do we just, I don't know, so that's.
It's got a whole book full of information for you there.
Yeah, appreciate Mr. Nelson bringing that up, and he had mentioned that to me before, and I had actually pulled 2019 resolutions, the ones where the staff was specifically asked to do something within a time frame or whatever. And so things like, just so you know, as an update, the division structure. We're going to the division structure. That has been completed. We are now in our divisions. Of course, the Stour Trail, still in progress. We had a meeting yesterday. We're getting closer to that. The fair MOU has hit a snag, but we're maneuvering that along, having meetings now. CAPO, the report is done. It's going to be presented to the board. Yesterday was decided that a CUP was going to go to public hearing, so we're making progress on that. The nuisance ordinance, we have switched that from, well, Health and Human Services has done a part of it, but now we've turned that over to the responsibility of environmental services, because they're taking I think a more practical approach to get this done. Hasn't been a top priority for us, but I can say that we're getting closer there, and I think in the next several months we'll have something on that. So those are the resolutions. There was one letter I found, and I have to admit, I have not jumped on this one yet, but there was a letter that I found that said that we need to contact Burnett County about an ATV coordination. You know, how can we work our trails in coordination for ATVs with Burnett County? And that was something that Nick had initiated or said, and I'm going to follow up on that just because I don't think anybody's ever responded to that.
Administrator, I think there was actually, on that one, there was a resolution passed, and it was because Burnett County asked us to have a resolution authorizing our county staff and our group to meet with Burnett County's group to discuss trail connectivity. And they didn't want to do it just based off of a letter. So I believe there's actually a resolution out there that asked for that, because Burnett County was the one that requested us do an official request to have discussion. And I know, I think it was sitting there on the request of maybe DNR and even staff until the Stour Trails resolved. I think they said, why don't you just take a break, right? That was with Nick Osborne.
2018.
It could have been.
I just looked at 2019. But I guess
Thanks for the update.
I want to commend the staff for the ones that I've been working with have done a great job of staying on top of things. We don't always do things maybe as fast as some people would like. The other person that does a great job is Tammy Peterson and our clerk. And for them to keep on top of all these things is incredible, but they both done a really nice job.
All right, number 13, he just kind of gave an update on MOUs. I don't think we need any further discussion on that unless you have something to that. Vince?
Yeah, I think similar to the resolutions, how do we stay on top of those MOUs? MOUs, we've have some that I think we were counting them the other day. I have like 18 or 19 up in my file cabinet. And many of them have been, well, the fair MOU was years and decades ago, and it has continued, and nothing has changed. And so we are starting to take a look at those and say, do these need updated, changed? Are we implementing them correctly? That type of thing.
Just on discussion on the matter, has there been any updates there or anything? Have they met with you, Chad, or anything?
So I met with the Fair Board last week with members of the Fair Board and their accountant. Emily and Mo were there as well. I reviewed their 2019 review. They don't have an audit, they have a review, which is significantly different. I've asked for a number of financial documents and supporting board meeting minutes and that kind of stuff. They've agreed to all that. Tracy's working on putting it together. And she asked me when I really needed it. I said, ideally, I'd like to have it by next week, so I have another week or two to go through it so that I can give you guys a good opinion at the following meeting. But okay. I think it was a pretty good meeting.
All right. Identify subject matters for next meeting. I have down, Lee, you weren't here. We'll just have it on our next meeting. Tax deed planning committee information. So we'll leave that for next week or next month. Clam Falls. Oh no, that's going to the floor. Trail Falls. Okay. I guess that's all I have for any other matters for next meeting that we discussed today. Oh, well, that's going to the board. Okay. All right. Policy. Yep. Policy. Yep. All right. Policy review. Okay. MOUs. All right. Very good. All right, here. Okay. On favor? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.